Very much, Tim.
Thank you.
Corporations aren't paying, and the White House wants us to pay, but who really should be paying? Here to discuss the solution to this question, the question, Neil Bortz, who should be paying? Neil, what do you, look, you're a fair tax guy. Explain to us what would happen to a GE or a Boeing or a Goldman Sachs, for that matter, under a fair tax?
Well, remember, all taxes, as with some other things, roll downhill. The final analysis, Eric, the only entity, the only people who pay taxes in this country at all are individual consumers. All business taxes, all corporate taxes, they all end up reflected in the price of whatever item or service that business is providing.
So go ahead, take it to the next step.
Your landlord.
Go ahead. Why? Well, and let's point this out. I should have written that a little bit better. A fair tax basically taxes consumption, not income. So if you go ahead and buy a pack of cigarettes, a loaf of bread, a six-pack of beer, you're taxed on that, but you're not taxed when you get your paycheck, right, Neil?
Well, exactly so. If you live in a state without an income tax, you make $2,000 a week. Every 2 weeks, you get a check for $4,000. Look, it's a consumption tax. Ask the people out there, would you rather pay 25% of everything you earn or 23% of everything you spend? And the details, Eric, you know the details. They're available at fairtax.org, and it would take us more time than we have to explain it all. But it gets rid of all personal income taxes, all payroll taxes, all corporate and business income taxes, and it just replaces them with an inclusive sales tax at the national level. The price of consumer goods do not go up because the embedded tax comes out. The fair tax goes in.
But Neil, and point this out. So it levels the playing field. So big corporations with, as Tim Carney pointed out, with full divisions of tax lawyers won't have an advantage against the small businessman who wants to compete.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No advantage at all. A small businessman can't go to K Street in Washington and pay $300,000 to a lobbyist to try to get them a special tax break in Washington, D.C. The small businessmen who provide most of the jobs in our economy, they're working at a huge disadvantage, while companies like GE say, hey, how about a couple of $1 billion so we can build a jet engine the military doesn't want?
Hey, Neil, I got to do this before I let you go. I have to ask you, a lot of people say the problem with a fair tax or a flat tax, any of these sort of consumption taxes, VAT tax, is that it creates a black market for goods. In other words, you can avoid a tax by doing barter trading.
Okay, real quick. You can avoid income tax as a solo act. If you want to avoid the fair tax, it takes two for that dance, and the penalties are harsh. Remember, 86% of all consumer purchases of services and goods come from major corporations, major businesses, who are not going to take that chance breaking the law.
All right, Neil Bortz, we can say thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Eric.
All right, we want to hear from you. Does Obama really suck this much at math? Or is he just trying to kiss up and win some points with his liberal base? Go to my Facebook page at facebook.com/Eric Boling, or find me on Twitter, twitter.com/Eric Boling. Let me know what you think. Your comments could end up right here on the air. Up next, there's new evidence the State Department has on Iran, plus a U.S. lawmaker's wake-up call to Washington about, get this, the Muslim Brotherhood. Stick around. We'll be right back. The president and his cost-cutting proposals yesterday, there was a hearing that got little to no press on Capitol Hill. It focused on the Muslim Brotherhood. The chair of the House Intelligence Subcommittee on Terrorism, Sue Myrick, raised a red flag that the U.S. doesn't have a strategy to deal with a shadowy group that's trying to assume power in Egypt.
The federal government does not have a comprehensive or consistent strategy for dealing with the Muslim Brotherhood and its affiliated groups in America. Nor does it have a strategy for dealing with the Brotherhood in Egypt or the Greater Middle East. We need to examine closely whether its true goal of setting up a worldwide Islamic regime is still in place.
Here now with their thoughts are Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, and Robert Spencer, director of Jihad Watch and author of Stealth Jihad: How Radical Islam is Subverting America Without Guns or bombs. Dr. Jasser, let's start with you because you were one of the key witnesses in Representative Peter King's Homeland Security hearings a month or so ago. Tell us what you thought about the hearings today on the Hill.
Yeah, I can't tell you how important they are and how much of a service Congresswoman Myrick and the witnesses were doing in bringing to light a subject. When I talked about radicalization, I talked about a continuum, the fact that it's not just the violence at the end, but there's an ideology that separates some Muslim youth, not all, a minority, but a radical minority from the society, which is related to a slippery slope of political Islam. And we've been playing defense against the ideology that's not only domestic, but global. And the Brotherhood has been the primary cancer cell. And she really brought to light some very academic, poignant testimony about the fact that we've had no strategy. We've been fighting a cold war of ideas, not only just playing defense, but with no strategy at all. And if we're going to penetrate the ideas of political Islam all around the world, we need to enable liberal, secular Muslims to start to fight this on the ground, to begin ideas of reform, the separation of mosque and state, and to fight this offensively, which we have had no strategy of doing.
No strategy. Mr. Spencer, one of the things that concerned us most about Egypt when Mubarak stepped down was this, in fact, problem of the Muslim Brotherhood making their way in. Do we know if the Muslim Brotherhood is making inroads into Egypt now?
It's happening more quickly than anybody could have anticipated, Eric. You know, not long ago I was on your show, Follow the Money, and I said the Muslim Brotherhood is poised to take power in Egypt, and Juan Williams said I was fear-mongering. And now I just want to say to Juan Williams and to everybody else, I told you so. I tried to tell you the Muslim Brotherhood won 77% in a referendum just weeks ago in Egypt to change the constitution that will, in ways that will pave the way for its taking power. It is clear that it is the largest group in Egypt in opposition and the one that is poised to take power there. Right. And so they're going to establish an Islamic State, and we also have to remember that Representative Myrick is right. The Brotherhood is in the United States also.
Right. We'll get there, sir. We'll get there, Mr. Spencer. We'll get to
so on.
We'll get to the U.S. Dr. Jasser, less than 30 seconds or so. Tell us, is this a different Muslim Brotherhood than the one we know from past, I guess, terrorist ties?
Yeah, their core ideology, they may eschew violence, but their core ideology of Islamic supremacism, establishing an Islamic State through Sharia law, is still in place. They've never condemned that, and they haven't stepped away from it. But I hope people understand that we need to get out of the morass that created these groups, which was the dictatorships in the Middle East, and we may step backwards first, but the progress in the Middle East may seem messy, but it's the only way out of this, Robert and Eric, and I hope people see that this is the only way out, is to get rid of these thugs and get us on the ground to help mobilize them towards some type of secular democracy.
All right, we're going to continue this discussion. We're going to take it to how it's affecting us right here in the United States after the break. More with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser and Robert Spencer in a couple of minutes. The American Islamic Forum for Democracy, and Robert Spencer, director of Jihad Watch. Mr. Spencer, you touched on it in the last block. Let's talk about it now. How does what's going on in Egypt, in fact, even in Libya, affect us here in America?
Well, Eric, we have to remember that the Muslim Brotherhood has a strategic goal for the United States that was delineated in a captured internal document that was unearthed a few years ago, and it's dedicated in the United States, in its own words, to eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within. That same document lists all the major Muslim organizations in the United States as Muslim Brotherhood-linked organizations, including the Muslim American Society, the Council on American Islamic Relations, parent group, the IAP, the Muslim Students Association, the Islamic Society of North America. These groups are brotherhood groups that are working in the United States to subvert the U.S. Constitution and ultimately to replace it with Islamic law. And we have to recognize that, and recognize that that's a political agenda that free people need to fight and resist.
Dr. Jasser, do you agree with Mr. Spencer? I mean, the one that really sticks out for me is CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations. They're very much out there. They're very much trying to paint the picture of Muslims being not extremists, not radical, but Mr. Spencer says maybe they are. What do you think?
Well, I think, you know, many of our families came to the U.S. to escape sort of these Islamist groups that claim to speak for us, and CARE is one of those examples. I mean, one of the best examples, Eric, is just a couple weeks ago, there was released and published on FoxNews.com a letter that Nihad Awad, the head of CARE, sent to the Gaddafi thug asking for $15 million for his peace foundation, in which he called Gaddafi the excellency of Islam, the great Muslim leader, etc. So you see how important it is that these dictators are completely in bed with the Muslim Brotherhood front groups, these legacy groups that claim to speak for Muslims, but they're all about control, collectivization of our community, trying to say that we all speak as one rather than the diversity that we really are, which is those of us that want liberty, that want freedom, that want separation of mosque and state, and want to stay away from groups like CARE and Brotherhood type mentality.
Mr. Spencer, let's take it to Libya right now. I mean, there's a power struggle going on in Libya. Frankly, it may divide the country in half, or either the rebels or Gaddafi could win out. But if the rebels take over, do we know that there's no Muslim Brotherhood or even Al-Qaeda or Taliban involved with the rebels?
Well, actually, we know just the opposite. We know that there's a significant Al-Qaeda presence among the rebels. We know that one of their trainers is a Guantanamo detainee who was released in 2008. We know that eastern Libya, the center of resistance to Gaddafi, was also the center of jihad warriors going from Libya into Iraq. More came from that area of Libya than any other region of the Islamic world into Iraq to wage jihad against American troops there. And so this is the resistance to Gaddafi. Here again, just as in Egypt, we're going to see an Islamic State in Libya following Gaddafi that's going to be even more hostile to the United States than he is.
Dr. Jasser, very quickly, the rebels have asked us for a $2 billion loan, a little help there. Would that be a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, I think the only money we should be putting in is money that we follow in with people on the ground to help them build institutions, not from arm's length, but us working with secular Democrats on the ground for solutions, because these problems we keep talking about exist, but they exist because we've sort of left the Middle East to be at the hands of dictators, and it's time for us to get the ideas of liberty infused on the ground so that we have the advocates like we did in Poland, Romania, Czechoslovakia. When those dictatorships left, we went there and advocated for freedom, and we need to help them build those institutions, but not just dumping money at it.
Right.
We need to follow it.
Fascinating topic. Thank you guys, Mr. Robert Spencer and Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Thank you guys. All right, we've been talking about Obama's fuzzy math. I want to know, can he really suck that much at math? I shouldn't say that. Does he stink that much at math? Or is he just trying to kiss up to the liberal base? What do you think? Log on to Facebook.com right now, Facebook.com/Eric Boling, or let me know on Twitter. That's Twitter.com/Eric Boling. Tell me what you think. I'm going to read the results of the poll and some of your comments next on air.
Tomorrow, it is time to take a stand. All of us together as a nation. We stand in defense of Israel. Friday, 5 p.m.
Throughout the show, we've been asking you, does Obama really stink that much at math, or is he just trying to kiss up to his liberal base? Now, here's what you had to say about it. 91% say Obama's just kissing up to his base. 9% say he's just that bad at math. Let's take a look at some of your comments coming in on Facebook. Mike says both. Hasn't called you yet, by the way, laughing out loud. Rosemarie says he's sucking up to his base, but his base must be pretty stupid if they can't do the math themselves. Doug says no, he just comes about things from a way he's been taught during his, Marxist education. Catherine says Obama is far too brilliant to suck at math. He must be scheming something. And then Daniel says it's not that he sucks at anything, but he doesn't bother to check and verify what he's asked to tell the American people. I'm going to say thank you to everyone. I'm going to say good night. I had a great time. See you later.